this is Professor Benjamin, and welcome to week 3 of this course. So this week we're going to cover a lot of material: ethics, economics, and policy. So we're going to cover the ethics of environmental conservation, which is there's a lot involved with the ethics. Then there's the economics of environmental conservation, and then there's the policy level of environmental conservation. So we're going to cover all 3 of those topics this week. So you do have a significant amount of additional readings to do, and I've included a bunch of videos as well. I'm hoping to take off a little bit of that, the stress of reading so much, but you definitely need to read all the material. So we're going to understand the difference between preservationists and conservationists this week. We're going to understand market-based policies, environmental injustices, and how our views on nature have been developed. And I want to start there. So one of the big things this week is we're going to talk about how our ethics have been formed for the environment. And they're way different than the way our ethics are formed for other things. For example, for how we live our life. They're actually different than that. Our views on the environment are technically and most of the time anthropocentric, which means they are human-based views. So we don't think of nature having this at the same level as humans. Now, there has been some transformation in this area in terms of like pet dogs and pet cats. A lot of people now kind of think of those as part of their families. But before that, animals, a lot of times domesticated animals, were just thought of as for anthropocentric, for human value. So these views, though, and this is going to be very controversial for some of you, were formed actually by a lot of times by our religious beliefs. And whether we know it or not, unless you were brought up in an atheist household and you've had that ideal throughout your whole life, you've been ingrained in some sort of religion. And that religion, most of the time, is a monotheistic religion. And I'm not saying for every single one of you, because there are a lot of other religions that are not monotheistic. Monotheistic means one God religions. But for the most part, most people in the United States practice one of the monotheistic religions. And that means one God. And God technically is a man. And when we think about this, we say that God created the earth. In a lot of Christian religions, right? God created the earth. And with this comes the fact that means that man, aka God, is in charge of the earth. And now, while there's a lot of, the Bible and the Quran and a lot of other books tell us that humans are supposed to be stewards of the environment, meaning that we take care of it. Right there is a troublesome sentence, meaning we take care of it. We are in charge of it, so we take care of it. And with that, there has been a detachment from nature. And a really great example of this is, for example, for the wildfires that are going on in California, or a hurricane. My mom is a big one who says, well, thank God that hurricane didn't come our way. And she puts the faith in God that the hurricane did not hit a specific region. As a scientific person, when you look at that, you say, well, the reason that it didn't hit that area is because the high and the low, and there wasn't enough energy in the Gulf. There are a lot of other scientific factors involved. And so with that, we put monotheistic religions tend to make us not look at the science. They tend to make us look at the religious side of it. And that is a big detachment, and it has formed a lot of our views on nature and has driven a lot of policies that have been enacted by administrations throughout time. Well, God will take care of it. Well, God will clean up that river. Or God will take care of it. Or this is the way it's meant to be. God said in the Bible that eventually the earth will end, right? And so there's a lot of this detachment with nature. So I want you to take note of that while you are reading the PowerPoints and taking a look at things. And I do specifically ask that. And it is a tough question for a lot of us to answer. So I want you to really think about it. And I'm not saying for you not to be religious, right? Or not to follow your religion. But I want you to think about how religion plays a role in how we view the environment, okay? The other thing that we're going to cover is that preservation versus conservationist. And I do not want you looking up what preservationist is on Google, because there are 2 different terms in relation to this class. preservation in this class is hands-off nature. And conservationist view is the ideal that we will have the utilitarian viewpoint on nature, the greatest good for the greatest amount of people. And that's why I have you watch the video on utilitarianism, because it's really important for you to know the flaws of utilitarianism as well as the benefits of the ideal of utilitarianism, okay? And then all of this kind of has driven our ideals. So I just want to quickly remember pages 16 and 17 of the OER textbook, and then there's a lot of additional readings because you don't have a lot of reading to do in here. But the idea of these are ethical viewpoints, and then they drive policies. And in nature, we have something called pricing the priceless. We put a cost-benefit analysis on the environment. And I know a lot of you are going to say, well, you can't put a price tag on nature. You sure can. I have a price tag. You have a price tag. We all have price tags. And actually, depending upon the color of our skin, our socioeconomic class, and our gender, our price tags are worth different amounts. And I know that's very hard for a lot of people to understand, but it is. Depending upon our jobs, depending upon race, color, socioeconomic class. Same with nature. Fuzzy things technically a lot of times get more value than non-fuzzy things. And the way that we put a price tag on nature is very interesting and complicated, and that's why I have you read this article, Pricing the Priceless. It talks about the surveys and the willingness to pay versus what people actually will pay, and I want you to look at that. Another alternative to cost-benefit analysis is this idea of cap and trade. And cap and trade is an idea of credits, like kind of switching around pollution credits. And it's a way to put an economic value on the environment. And humans tend to respect something more if there's an economic incentive for it. So this idea of cap and trade is an idea that we can regulate pollution by making it almost like the stock market. And so I want you to read about that. And then we go on to talk about environmental injustices, and I want you to really read about that and understand what environmental injustices are, and a lot of them take place right in your backyard in Philadelphia. And we talk about Chester County has a lot going on in there. There's also sick families of North Carolina military bases, because there's a lot of injustices that happen on military bases. This article here, We Kill Animals to Save Them, is a really great article about ethics. Should we be killing animals to save other animals? And this is that whole idea of permitting hunting, especially big game hunting on a lot of reservations. And a lot of you might have heard about some cases that happened probably over the past 3 or 4 years, where individuals are able to buy a permit and kill big game species. And then they take photos with them, right? And a lot of people are wholly against that, but then they also don't understand there's a conservation side to it. And I know a lot of you are like, how is that possible? But read this article, and I think you'll find out some interesting information. So again, as always, you have your PowerPoint right here. And remember, if you open your PowerPoint, there are notes under each slide that will help walk you through. I've added some videos into the PowerPoints, and always, if you need any help, reach out. I want you to read the material and try and comprehend it yourself. But of course, if you need explanations or help, reach out to me. As always, we have an initial post due by Wednesday and a response post due by Friday to a fellow classmate. And then this week, we also have a paper due on tragedy of the commons. And you need to pick an invasive species that is a tragedy of the commons and write about it. And I want you to make sure that you watch this walkthrough video before you do the assignment. You also want to make sure that you look over the rubric in which I will grade you. This is a Turnitin assignment, so make sure you don't have your name or any identifying information on your paper. And if you have any questions or issues about Turnitin, there's a video under the home page here that you can read about Turnitin. But make sure that you understand what Turnitin is, and it will help you with grammar, spelling, etc. You can actually get your results back and look at those results before you submit your final paper, and this will help guide you with any maybe edits or whatever you might have due. Okay? Have a fantastic week. I hope you enjoyed this session. There's a lot of fantastic content in this session. And the last part of the session talks about policies, how policies are made in environmental conservation, and you want to take note to those as well. As always, if you have any questions, reach out, and have a great week.